Okay, great. Well, let's get started. I want to welcome everyone to our webinar today highlighting the spring release of GE and Spectrum. Since we have a large audience, today we are in what's called presentation mode, which means you're all muted. If you have any questions or comments, please post those in the chat section, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can at the end of the meeting. And anything we don't get to, I'll make sure we get those captured and email you the responses after the call today. So keep in mind the meeting is being recorded, and I will also send a update after the meeting letting you know how to get access to that recording on the web in case some others didn't get a chance to see it. So with that, Jeff, I think I'll hand it over to you and let you go ahead and get started.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Barton. I appreciate it. As Barton said, my name is Jeff Armstrong. I am VP of Software Development here in the Foundation Solutions Division at Fusion. We have been very hard at work over the past, I don't know, at least 4, maybe 6 months on our spring 2015 product releases. So I'm real excited to share with you guys today our new features in Branded GE 4.3 and in Spectrum 181. In GE 4.3, we're going to be talking about improvements that we've made to web applications, improvements that we've made to the reviewing and scoring section in GE, improvements to the query screen, and various other bug fixes and improvements too. In the Spectrum Web Portal, if you haven't seen the Spectrum Web Portal in the past 6 months, we've made some really significant improvements just as far as the way the thing looks. So I think you're really going to like what we've added to the Spectrum Web Portal. We've enhanced some of the roles, some of the functions for the roles. We've added new landing pages. We've split the grant administrator role and the site administrator role into 2 separate roles because logically speaking, those were 2 completely separate things. We've got a new crowdfunding feature that we're really excited to show you guys. And we have a few other miscellaneous enhancements that we want to show you too in the portal. So I recognize that not all of you guys are Spectrum users, and so I'll try to keep that content as brief as possible to make as much time at the end for questions. Afterwards we'll discuss the release schedule, and then as Barton said, we'll open it up for Q&A. So let's start out talking about the web application enhancements. So if you guys use web applications online, you're pretty familiar with this screen. This is our profile application screen. We've added a few new features to this screen. So let me point out here a new one called Automatically Processed Submitted Applications. What this does is when an application gets submitted, if you turn this feature on, then it can automatically create a proposal or a scholarship application record without having to do it manually later. The big advantage to this, of course, is workflow. You'll immediately get that proposal workflow or that scholarship app workflow, which is what drives the supplemental functionality. So that's a new feature that we've added in this version. As you upgrade your current profile applications, this feature will be turned off, and you'll have to turn it on manually for each application that you want to automatically process. The second field right underneath it is the second feature I wanted to tell you guys about. It's what we call the default fund feature. On an application, when an application gets submitted, if you have selected a default fund, then the application will be associated with that fund. If it's a scholarship application, it will be a scholarship fund. If it's a proposal application, it will be, of course, just one of the standard funds. But if you've got, say, for example, you've got the Dallas Cowboys Scholarship Fund application and it's just specific to that fund, why would you want to go into 200 applications and set the fund manually on each one of them, right? This will allow it to automatically set as it's submitted. That's one of the new features we've put in. You'll also notice on this screen that the start dates and end dates for cyclical applications are now date times, not just dates. We had a couple of folks ask us, can our application be finished at 10 p.m. instead of at midnight? Yeah, sure, why not? So that's a new application feature that we've added. You'll notice on the screen too that there are only 4 tabs, and there used to be 5. That 5th tab was where you associated your application review groups with your committees on a round-by-round basis. And if you had multiple rounds and a lot of committees, that screen got real hard to deal with real fast. So what we've done is we've combined that with the 2nd tab. Let's jump over here to the Score Process tab. This screen has changed a bit in that grid that was on the 5th tab is now right here in the middle. And of course, you'll notice it's only got 4 columns, not 5, because you don't have to choose your round. You're already on round 1. right? And most of these other fields that you see here were only available on a pop-up screen. So if you think about it, we had 2 tabs and a pop-up that you had to work with to manage your scoring, and we've put it all together on one screen. So hopefully you find this easier to work with and easier to use. We've also made an enhancement to our copy profile application feature. This copy profile application feature had been in there for a while, but the way it used to work was that it would create a new profile application and it would reuse every page from the application that was being copied from. Reusing those pages would then result in people going in and modifying, making a slight change from last year, not realizing that they were also accidentally changing last year's application too, because they were actually sharing that page. So what we're doing now is we are giving you the ability to choose on a page-by-page basis. Do you want to reuse the page, which is the default for all of these? Do you want to copy the page, or do you want to omit it completely and just not even have that page as a part of the application? Now's probably a good time for me to go over the best practices there on reusing versus copying. If you have a page that's never going to change, say it's your standard budget page, or maybe it's your standard scholarship application bio page. You're always going to ask the students for their name and address and email and ethnicity and demographics, and that's never going to change. Those sorts of pages are great candidates to be reused if they're never going to change. You can copy the HTML and reuse it real easily. But if you're going to start with last year's application and make some changes to it, any changes besides just subtle HTML changes, if you're going to change the profile fields themselves, if you're going to add new fields, remove fields, etc., you're going to want to copy it. Because if you go in and make changes to the profile application page, you're actually changing last year's application too, which will have obviously bad consequences. So that's the difference between reusing and copying. And now when you copy a profile application, you've got the ability to choose on a page-by-page basis what you want to do. We have also expanded our field mapping functionality. Just to review, whenever you put an application online, you can have some of your fields mapped to have these fields pre-populated with data. If you're going to ask an applicant for their name and address, you have that information already. Why not pre-populate the fields, right? So that feature's been in there a while. But the mapping has pretty much at this point been limited to just the constituent information. You could only map to either the individual's constituent information or the org constituent information, right? Well, now we've given you the ability to map fields from different places. So the first one here, we've mapped this one from an individual Razor's Edge attribute. So I've got the dietary preference of this individual put up on an application field. You can also map from an organization RE attribute, maybe your mission statement as a part of your application, right? You can also map from either the current web application or from prior web applications. If I've already done a web application and I've already filled out this, then I can map values from last year's application and reuse them. Similarly, for a current web application, if you have a multi-stage application, it's pretty likely that you ask information in your LOI. And then you may want to confirm that information if you accept that person as a finalist, because they may have entered that information months ago and it might have changed, right? So you can map, for example, pages pages 4 and 5 from your values that they entered in on pages 1 and 2. So the way this works is you set up which fields you want to be mapped on this screen. And then whenever you go to your profile detail to configure the field mapping, the drop-down list of all the fields available to map used to just be those demographic fields from the constituent record. And now it will also include anything that you've added to the screen. So you can map from all sorts of places. Much more mapping available now with web applications. We have also added a new feature that a lot of folks have been asking for. I think our support desk is going to be happy to hear this one, because hopefully it'll cut down on the number of calls they get about this. But your list of applications in your Manage Online Scholarship application and your Manage Online Proposal application screens contains information about the applications, but it really doesn't contain any fields that were a part of the applications themselves. You can't see what the student entered for their GPA, that sort of thing, right? And so rather than having us customize your data view for you, you can now do it yourself. So the column chooser is something that's been there for a while. You click this button, it brings up your column chooser. But we've added a new link here called Manage Profile Fields. And you can bring this screen up. You can choose an application, you can choose a page, and then you can choose a field and add it to this list of fields. So these are all custom fields from profile applications, from web applications, that have now been added to this screen. So what happens is these get created behind the scenes into a custom database view, into a dynamic database view. And when you close it, these 4 fields are now available in the list of fields to choose from. So just like that, you can go in and check these new fields, and they're suddenly in your grid. So again, this is for Manage Online Scholarship application and for Manage Online Proposal application screens. You can now manage your own custom fields. We have also added a new file attachment utility. As you may or may not know, when applications have attachments on them, we store them in the database. There's a database table for web application attachments. And getting those files out of the database has been tricky at times. And so to manage that and to help you manage your files, we've created this new attachment utility. It's available in the admin menu. Under admin, there are the utilities, and this is the new attachments utility. So this grid is a list of every attachment for every application. It's an infragistics grid, so you can filter it and sort it. This one I've filtered just for this proposal. And once you've got just the ones that you want to work with, you can select all, and then you can choose which of the functions you want to do. You can export to a file. That does just what you think it would. It prompts you for a folder, and then all the files that are checked, the utility here will actually go ahead and create files in that folder from the data in the database. Compress will take the data that's stored in GE, the actual attachment file, and store it in a far more efficient way than the storage mechanism that was put in place when we first developed the products. It's worth noting that both the Spectrum portal and the Proffer portal, the latest versions of those portals now store in this much more efficient mechanism. But if you've got applications that came in from older versions, then these files aren't compressed, and you can free up some disk space by compressing them. So you can't really see it. It got cut off on this screenshot. But one of the columns over here is compressed, yes or no. And you can just look at your uncompressed files and compress them from here. And then finally, the last thing you can do here is purge. It does exactly what you think it does. It deletes the records out of the database. Be careful with it. But if you've got scholarship applicants that you have declined, and you've got all these attachments from these applicants that you're not going to be giving money to, you want to free up some disk space, you can go ahead and purge those records. It's worth noting that when you compress and when you purge, it will shrink the size of your database, but you won't see disk space improvement until you actually get a DBA involved and go in and resize your database in the back end. And if you need a more detailed explanation of that, just write us at support and we'll help you figure it out. So that about does it for the web application enhancements. I want to go now into the reviewing and the scoring enhancements. So if you've used scoring and reviewing in GE, the review menu, the review landing page, wasn't organized very well. We got a lot of feedback from the user group that it was difficult to work with, and we've heard you, and we've reorganized, and we hope you guys like what you see. The first thing you'll notice is that we've got 5 submenus now. We can look at the reviews, we can look at the reviewers, we can look at the committees, the application review groups, and then finally a grid of applications to do some processing. So I'll step through these one at a time here. This first screen is the review screen. It lists each of the profile applications. And when you double click it, it brings up the profile application summary screen. That screen had been there before, but we've enhanced it quite a bit. The review, this is the reviews tab, the third tab that I'm showing on this screenshot. But we now have the list of all the reviews for this profile application. Same with applications. If you were to click on that, you'd see a list of all the applications just for this application. The funds would show a breakdown if you had fund matching of which funds were getting applied to, and then finally a list of references as well. So We think this has improved the way that you just sort of see an overall summary of your profile application as it relates to scoring. And now let's take a look at the reviewers screen. This is a list of all the reviewers. Again, we had this before. It was a little bit tricky to get to, but if you saw each of the individual reviewers, we've added some functionality to this grid where now we see how many applications has this reviewer been assigned, how many have they submitted, and then we represent that as a percentage and say what's their progress, how much work do they still have left to do, right? A bunch of additional fields over here that we didn't have the real estate to show you, but we're showing all sorts of details on the reviewers. What's their average score, their minimum score, their maximum score, that sort of thing. When you double click on a reviewer, it brings up the reviewer screen, which again we had before, but we've added quite a bit to the reviewer screen. We now have a summary tab that shows you the same information you saw in the first tab, down below in the progress bar, but it breaks them down by committee. So this reviewer is a member, it looks like, of 6 different committees. And for each committee, you can see the progress, how many applications have been assigned, how many reviews have been completed, the average total score, minimum score, maximum score, and not just raw scores. We also show scores in this grid of weighted scores and things like that, category scores. And for each row in this grid, these charts down here update. So this is a chart describing Mark's progress in this particular committee. He's got 40 applications assigned. He's only done 5 of them, so he still has 35 to go. And this is just a distribution of his raw scores. So this is a completely new screen for a completely new tab for the screen. The reviewer info tab hadn't changed. And we've added a reviews tab where we now list all of Mark's reviews on this screen. And of course, you can double click on a review and pull it up. Getting to a particular reviewer's screens, all the reviews before, you had to go to 2 or 3 screens and click 7 or 8 times, and now you can just come right here. We think it's organized quite a bit better now. Let's take a look at the committee screen. Again, this is the 5th submenu over here, committees. This is a list of all the committees broken down by round. So on a round-by-round basis, what is the scoring progress of each committee? And again, we've got a lot of data that we can't show on these limited screenshots, but we've got average scores and things of that nature, the number of the number of members of the committee, that sort of thing. So we've got the status down here, and of course, as you can imagine, you double click on the committee and it will bring up the committee screen. This screen is one that was already in the system, but we've added quite a bit of functionality to it. The scoring process by application group grid here essentially shows you on an application group by application group basis, what is this committee's progress? How are they doing overall on a group by group basis? The selection tab really hasn't changed, but the reviewers tab has been added. And again, it's a list of all the reviews for this committee. Let's move on to the next one here, the application groups. By now, hopefully you're seeing a pattern here. It ought to be somewhat predictable what the look and feel is going to be here. This is a grid of all the application review groups. And for each group, again, on a round-by-round basis, it shows how many applications have been assigned, how many scores have been submitted, what the progress is, average scores, that sort of thing. When you double-click on one and pull it up, it brings up the application review group screen. Again, same screen as before, but we've added quite a bit to it. If this group has been assigned to multiple committees, then you'll see multiple bars here for progress. The criteria tab hasn't changed. The selection tab, we didn't change any of the functionality as far as look and feel goes, but we fixed a big bug that was on that screen where you tried to select just a few applications and it was adding a lot more applications than you asked for. So we've cleaned that up. And then finally, we've added a reviews tab where you can see all the reviews for this application review group. And then finally, let's go to this 5th menu item here, the application processing. For app processing, we now show a list of all the applications. Further to the right here, you'd see the average score, the number of reviews, that sort of thing. So you can tell from this grid, and it's an infragistics grid, so you can do grouping and sorting. But this grid will let you find maybe your top applications or your bottom applications, help you decide which ones to decline, which ones to advance, and then process them accordingly. So once you've selected some fields that you want to process or selected some applications that you want to process, we're making all these processes available on this screen. Again, all these processes were available elsewhere, but now they're here on one convenient screen for scoring purposes. You can promote applications from here. If you have a multi-stage application and you find your finalists and you want to go ahead and promote them, you can reopen applications from here so that applicants can go back and modify them and resubmit them. You can create or update proposals or scholarship applications from here. You can decline applications from here. And you can also do correspondence from here. So this will let you go ahead and send your award letters or email all of your applicants and let them know they can come back for round 2 because they're finalists, that sort of thing. So we're now allowing correspondence from here as well. So that's the review section. I hope you like the overhaul we've done. We put a lot of work into it and taking your feedback into account. And we hope you guys like what you've seen there. We'll go ahead and move on to a few more GE enhancements that we've made. This is the query screen. And we're going to make a couple of changes. This isn't our final version of the screen. We're going to make a few changes to it before we roll it out. But just like on the Manage Online Scholarship application screen, where you couldn't add profile details to that grid, the same was true for queries. You could see information about your applications, but you couldn't see the application's questions specifically in this grid, in this query screen. So we do have a utility that allows you to create what we call a report profile. It's kind of complicated and hard to get to, and you had to have real high permissions to get into that screen. And so we've taken the functionality out of that utility and brought it into this screen. So a report profile is essentially a collection of web application fields that are grouped together, and basically behind the scenes they get created into a database view. So a database view will allow you to see all these fields, and that'll get linked into the query screen so that, as you can see, this one's called Mark Test 2, this one's called Mark Test 2. All these fields are now available for your queries. The way this works is you choose your profile, you choose your page, you can add all the fields from the page into your report profile, or you can select just one field at a time. I will warn you, you don't want to go in and add all 300 fields from your application into this because the performance of that view is terrible. Just pick the fields you want, make a small report profile, go on the screen for queries. The other real exciting thing we've done with queries that we hope you guys will like is now, with a query, you can create a report. So SQL Server reporting services, if you're using SSRS and you've got it configured, you can now come into a query and click this button, and behind the scenes, it will create a new report on your SQL Server reporting services server. It uses the raw SQL from the query, it uses the columns, and it creates a report automatically, and it looks like what you'd expect an automatically created report to look like. It looks like it was generated by a computer. It's not incredibly user-friendly. You're going to have to go in and edit that report, make some of your fields wider, align them, format them as currencies, that sort of thing. But if you're looking to create a report, this is a whole lot better than working from scratch, that's for sure. So it's a great starting point. And now any query that you've got in GE, you can now make a report out of. So a couple other enhancements we want to tell you about. We have a new simple grant screen. A lot of folks have asked, why is the grant screen so complicated? Why so many tabs? When the majority of our grants are just single payment, single fund, single recipient, simple grants, why do we have to make it so complicated? So great question. This screen was designed to, one, simplify what you're seeing on the screen, and secondly, to make data entry a lot faster. So if you have a grant that meets the criteria of a simple grant, which is single payment, single fund, a standard grant, not an interfund transfer, et cetera, and the recipient is the same as the payee. So if you have a grant that meets that criteria, you can turn on a new feature, and by default we'll leave it turned off, but you can turn on a new feature that will allow you to open that grant in this simple grant screen and not see all the complexities of the other screens. If you're on a simple grant and you realize, no, I need to add an additional payment, or maybe the recipient's not going to be the same as the payee, et cetera, no worries. You can click this little green button and it will open up the standard grant screen. If you've got this new simple grant screen concept turned on, if you have this feature turned on, then any of your new standard grants will initially default to this screen. And you'll notice, since there's so fewer fields than before, data entry is a lot faster. We've cut the number of tabs you've got to do in half, I'm sure. The Save and Close button here behind the scenes, what you can't see on the screenshot, is that Save and New and Save and Copy are both there. And of course, the keyboard shortcuts for Save and New and Save and Copy are still going to be relevant here as well. So hopefully you guys will like that feature and use it. And here's the next one we've added. This is characteristic percentages. We've had folks ask us, both in demonstrations and from current clients, can we split up our characteristics and weight them, give them a weighting at the end of the year, so that our end of year characteristic reporting, we want to know how much money did we give to the southern region, or how much did we give to, say, baby boomers or whatever. If this particular grant, if you want this to be considered more of a southern grant than a 50 to 70-year-old grant, then you can weight it 60-40, or however you want to. It's completely optional. When you roll this upgrade out, all of your percents will default to 100%. There's no logic in here that's going to make them add up to 100%. So for each characteristic, you can pull back some of the weighting if you like on a characteristic by characteristic basis. And of course, this is a screenshot of the grant screen, but every screen that has characteristics on it now has this percent field as well. We also want to tell you about enhancements to batch email. The batch email screen allows you to do email in batch, of course. Email correspondence before on individual records, the way it works is it pulls up a screen in GE that lets you choose your to address, your from address. You can do CCs, BCCs, you can enter a subject and all that sort of stuff. In batch, we really didn't have that capability before. So now what we're doing is we're prompting for those values. You got your to address, you get your to list rather. So because this is a grant query batch, you can choose, do you want to send this to your fund advisors or do you want to send this to your recipients? All right. You can enter a CC if you like. You can enter in a blind carbon copy if you like. And then you have to enter in a subject. This is a required field. But once you do this, it'll then work the same way that the other batch functions, the batch correspondence functions work. It'll go ahead and create the email records and store them with each individual record, but it won't send them yet. And it will then pull up a preview screen where you can see a list of all the emails that have been generated before you actually send them out the door. So big improvements there in batch email. Let's talk about a few other very small miscellaneous enhancements. One, some of you may have been aware we had a problem with fuzzy dates in Razor's Edge sync functions. Razor's Edge has relationships, constituent relationships, and they also have constituent codes. And those both have a concept of a start date and an end date, and they're not stored in the true date format. And when there was a problem with the way those dates were stored, our sync functions couldn't convert them to real dates and do comparisons on them. So we fixed that. Any date that's really a bad date now just gets ignored. And so we fixed that one. We've also made an enhancement to scholarship matching in GE. When you do scholarship matching online, your students can pick multiple funds if you configure it that way. One of the limitations up until now has been that if you wanted to do that in GE, you couldn't match to multiple funds. You had to select only one. So now we do allow multiple funds to be selected. And it works the same way that it does on the web. If you have one application and you match it to 4 funds, then you will be able to choose all 4 funds. It will take your application and make 3 copies of it so that you have 4 applications each with a different fund, right? Several folks have asked for that, and that's now in. And then finally, one that's probably not relevant to most of you guys, international dates. If you want to set up your Windows workstation, if you want to go into your Windows settings and set your date format to something besides the standard American format, we can now support that for workstations. We had a couple of Canadian clients that were having problems with that. So that about wraps it up for the GE changes. I'm going to go ahead and dive into the Spectrum changes. Again, if you haven't seen Spectrum in a while, this is going to be pretty exciting. We start out with changes to our roles in Spectrum. Roles are what we call the individual portals. We've got scholarship applicants, grant applicants, donors, reviewers, etc. We start out with new landing pages. So this is the new applicant landing page. You can customize this text. Here on the new application landing page, you can see alerts for your application. If you've got addendum if you've got addendum pages, or if you've got supplemental pages that need to be filled out, you can see an alert there. If you have an application that's coming up on the deadline, you can see it there as well. We've got a couple of little panes here for your available applications and your saved applications to just see a quick preview of them. And then, of course, you can drill into those pages. So this is our new grant applicant landing page. This is our new reviewer landing page. When a reviewer logs in, they see custom welcome text. They'll see a chart of their review progress, how things are going for them, how many committed, how many saved, and how many they haven't even started yet. And then we have it broken down here by application review group, their status. So they can see how they're doing on a group-by-group basis. You can click on this link. It'll take you to the page that lists all the applications and that lists all the applications for review. And this particular application review group will be pre-filtered on that screen. We've made a lot of changes to the roles in general. You'll notice here we have a new role. We have an individual applicant. These are proposal applicants who are applying on behalf of themselves, not on behalf of an organization. So if you have a disaster relief or a hardship sort of application, you can use an individual applicant for that. You can also use this if you have some of your clients who are companies that want to set up their own disaster relief or employee relief fund applications online. It's useful for that as well. You can now customize the names of your roles. You don't have to call it the proposal applicant. You can call it the grant applicant if you like. You can turn the roles on and off like before, but you can also turn off registration for roles. So this would be useful, for example, for a board member portal. You don't want folks registering to be board members, but you still want your board member portal to be active, right? You can turn those off now on a role-by-role basis. As I mentioned before, we have split the concept of our site administrator and our grant administrator into two different portals, two different roles rather, because they're really two completely different things, right? This is in the grant administration portal. This is the configuring applications screen. You'll notice a lot of these fields are very similar to the very first screen we saw in this presentation. Back at the beginning, the profile application screen in GE. A lot of these fields are going to be the same ones from the profile application screen. So you can manage your applications either from GE or from the portal. The application editor really hasn't changed much. It's the HTML editor that we use to set up our online applications. There's now a new test application section, and this is where, as a site administrator, as a grant administrator, you can preview the applications before they go live. You can see what an applicant is going to see by creating a new test application. It's flagged as a test application, so you don't accidentally process it into a grant. But you can see what the applicant is first going to see when they first log in and see the application. Now, if you are doing a multi-stage application or an application with addendums or an application with fund matching, then when you first do a test application, you're only going to see the first few pages. But this preview link will essentially allow you to see the entire application with all possible pages, regardless of the page type. That way it will give you a real holistic view of what the client's going to see, what the applicant is going to see whenever they as they go through the process. So that's testing applications. The applications that you set up, the test applications that you create are available here in this Saved Applications menu. And you can also manage your references and your reports from here. We're not going to dive into all that today, but we've overhauled this grant administration portal, and we're pretty proud of what we've done here. Now we want to talk about our new feature called crowdfunding. This is you've got a proposal that comes in that you don't necessarily want to fund with your discretionary funds, but you want to put online to see if your donors want to fund it. We'll start by looking at the proposal screen and how we'll prepare a proposal for online funding. This is a new web funding tab on the proposal screen, and if you want to put this proposal online, go ahead and check this checkbox to enable online funding. And then you'll set up essentially the parameters of your crowdfunding effort here. The start date, you can leave it blank to publish it immediately. The end date, maybe you only want to accept donations for this for 2 weeks or something along those lines. Or you can leave it blank to just publish it until the goal is met. You set the whole goal amount. You set the minimum donation. How much is the donor going to have to contribute to be a part of it? And then if you do want to contribute some funds from one of your discretionary funds, you can enter that here as well. As you can tell on this one, we've entered $100,000 from this fund. Internally, you refer to this proposal with this short name, but on the web, you may want to call it something different. So there's a web proposal short name that's going to be visible online. And here's a description that's going to be visible online as well. So this can contain HTML if you like, because it's going to be put on the web. But you put in your detailed description of this proposal. And then finally, as donors come in and make contributions, you'll be able to see the funding progress down here on a contribution by contribution basis here. So you can see this donor gave $10,000. Add that to the $100,000 that already came from this fund, and we can now see that we're 11% funded for the $1 million. Again, this screen is on the proposal screen in GE in the back office, and there's a new tab on the proposal screen called Web Funding. So let's go take a look at what the donor is going to see. I showed you a couple landing pages for applicants and for reviewers. This is the new donor landing page. Again, you have custom text you can put up here. This is an overview of your fund summary. It's not the full fund summary. You can click on this to see the full fund summary. And of course, on your fund summary, you can drill in and see the gifts and see the grants, itemized. It's a pretty interactive fund summary that we've got set up. And then we show a couple of charts here for gift history and for grant history. And then finally now, a list of these new grant opportunities. So the one we were just looking at, the $1 million, 11% funded, is the first one on the list here. And when they see this and they click on it, it'll take them to this page. And if you've ever done crowdfunding through, Donors Choose or, GoFundMe or any of those sites, this ought to look familiar to you. This is the description of the grant opportunity and the funding progress. So all the financial details that we saw on the first screen, the description that we entered in on that first screen, and then a note here to the donor that says, to contribute to this project by making a grant request, click on the button below. And when they click there, it takes them to the donor advised grant recommendation screen. But behind the scenes, we note that this grant recommendation is actually going to be associated with proposal number 56 or whatever, right? It's going to be associated with this grant opportunity. And when it comes in, it will be tracked on that first screen we saw a couple seconds ago, where we take a look at the grant opportunities as they came in. And so this is crowdfunding. We're excited about it. I want to show you a few more things that we've done in the Spectrum portal. Significant enhancements that folks have asked for. First is our saved applications page. It used to just be a grid. There was limited real estate on the screen to work with, and we couldn't really show a whole lot of detail just because of the limitations of a grid. So now instead of a grid, we're showing this view that we think is a whole lot better. You can see the name of the application, the status, the stage. If you've got references, you can see the status of those references, etc. So this is a much better way, we think, to see your saved applications. And of course, this saved applications page is for grant applications. It is for scholarship applications and for test applications, individual, all the above. This is for all the saved application lists. And speaking of applications, we have improved the print function. So I know a lot of you guys have been asking about this. But we can now print the HTML that was originally used to fill out the application. You'll notice there are two tabs on this screenshot. This was the original tab. It popped up this printable version, if you will. But it took the HTML of every tab and it put it into one long printable page. So every tab is now a header, and then all the HTML was put underneath it. One of the differences between the HTML that they see on the web when they're filling it out and the HTML here has to do with essay questions. If you were to print the raw HTML, you'd only see the first 4 lines of the essay question, and then you'd see scroll bars on the side. You wouldn't be able to see the entire essay. But with this, we've actually modified it just a bit here so that you can see the entire text of the essay question. So HTML printing. A lot of folks have been asking for that. I'm glad we were able to get that in. And then another one here is field level help for applications. So you'll notice in these, on a couple of these fields, there's this little blue question mark out to the side of an application question. There's a new field on the GE profile detail screen where you can just enter help text in. And if there's text in there, if you've entered in help text, then when you generate the HTML, it'll automatically put this little question mark up for you. And clicking the question mark simply pops this little guy up so you can see whatever text you entered in as your HTML help. And it's easier to do that than it is to actually get the HTML into, rather than to get your help text into the raw HTML itself. This looks a lot better, we think. Finally, one more for reviewers. We heard from a couple of foundations who are using the application reviews in Spectrum that they wanted to see more information, more details on the review than they were seeing. For example, this total score that you saw here is a raw score. They wanted to be able to see the weighted score and the effective score. In this screenshot, they're all the same. But on this screen, you'll be able to see a lot more information about the review itself. Again, several reviewers were asking for that, so we've added that in as well. So we've put a whole lot of work in over the past few months getting these new features in, and we hope you like what you've seen here. Before we open it up for Q&A, let me go ahead and talk just a bit about our release schedule. We are in alpha testing right now internally, working out the kinks. We anticipate that by this time next week, we'll be ready for beta testing. So we're going to call it next Friday the 17th as our beta release. We currently don't have any beta clients signed up. So if you want a beta test, we would love to have you work with us on beta testing, especially if you've got a test environment. In fact, you really need a test environment if you're going to be a beta tester for us. But we'd like to see the system early on with your data, take some recommendations from you on things that we could tweak before we actually call it production. So if you want to have more input on exactly how this looks and you'd like to be a beta tester, then get a hold of me. I'm more than happy to sign you up. Beta testing typically takes about 2 weeks. So if we're going to release beta on April 17th, then unless we find something big, we're going to be releasing the production at the end of this month. And then at that point, we'll go ahead and put a new Granite GE patch and a new Granite GE install program out on Zendesk and SharePoint. So if you're self-hosted and you want to download it, you'll be able to do it at that point at the end of April. If you are a Spectrum customer, you need to go ahead and contact us to schedule an upgrade, either a Zendesk case or Fusion Labs, GE support at fusionlabs.net email. If you're hosted with us in our hosting environment, do the same. Get a hold of support and schedule an upgrade. We'll be happy to get that done. If you're hosted with Blackbaud, Blackbaud doesn't like to be one of the first clients. They like to see a system working in production for 4 weeks before they get an upgrade in their environment because it affects all clients. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and start that conversation with Blackbaud so that if we go into production by the end of April, then hopefully by the end of May, they'll be upgrading everybody to these latest versions. So Blackbaud should contact you guys about scheduling that, just to let you know that that change is coming. But we're going to go ahead and get the ball rolling, communicating that with them, with their hosting team. And then finally, just one shameless plug here. If you like what you see in the Spectrum web portal and you're not a Spectrum customer, contact Barton Dyson. We'd love to sell you a copy of it. If you're currently a Proffer customer and you want to switch to Spectrum, you can do so at no additional license cost. Your maintenance agreement that you're currently paying from Proffer, you can continue at that same rate with Spectrum. We're not going to increase that on you. You may need to pay for a bit of implementation and training, but there won't be any additional licensing costs to switch from Proffer to Spectrum. So with that said, Barton, let's go ahead and open up the floor to Q&A.
All right, perfect. So we'll try to stump you, Jeff, and see if you know all these answers.
All right.
If you don't, then we'll certainly look up the answer and get back to everyone. But the first one we have here is around reviewing. If a reviewer is in the same review committee for multiple grant cycles, that scoring progress track that you were showing, the scoring progress information, is that tracked by grant cycle or overall progress?
So it is actually it's done by round. So each of those, they're related to scoring rounds. So if you've got 3 rounds, then essentially you're looking at the progress of just a given round. Does that make sense?
Yep, I think so. Please add another comment to the chat if we didn't quite get that right. And then the second question, a pretty good clarification question we should probably touch on is, In the first part of your demonstration, they were asking, is this GE with a new look and feel, or are we looking at Spectrum right now? The first half of this call was really focused on GE itself, and anyone using GE can get access to that latest version once it's publicly available. Second half of the call was around the Spectrum web portal. You've probably in some cases we've been communicating the entire solution as being Spectrum going forward, just to be a little bit simpler, but it's truly GE and Spectrum together which makes up this combined solution. So think of GE as the back office and either Proper or Spectrum as the web portals that we offer.
Right, and to further clarify on that, if it was a bit confusing, the first half of the presentation was, as Barton says, that's the GE back office. We occasionally license that as Spectrum. Sometimes we call it our Spectrum Grant Management, our Spectrum Grant Manager management system. And so sometimes we use the Spectrum logo on the same application, but it's the same system behind the scenes. It's that same Windows application that we call GE.
Okay, perfect. This may be a comment or even a recommendation, but on your simple grant screen, we had someone point out that they didn't see the board date field, so that may not be one of the fields that was included on there, and if not, I think we could log that as a suggestion, right?
Yeah, we'll definitely take that into consideration. We were trying to simplify as much as possible on that simple grant screen, but I do think board date is probably important enough to put back in. So let me make a note there. Great suggestion, great catch. I appreciate the input on that, and we'll let you guys know how what we decide on that one.
Okay. And then a question about the running the update and any potential issues. So any potential issues with syncing data with RE that we should be aware of when updating to GE 4.3?
No, in fact, if you were having trouble before, you might not be having it now because of that the bug fix on the fuzzy date issue. But syncing data with Razor's Edge, we have tested. I guess I should say this carefully here. We have tested with the very latest version of Razor's Edge. As you may or may not know, Blackbaud made some pretty significant changes to the way constituent addresses work in the Razor's Edge. So far, we haven't run into any problems with the way that we're syncing with Razor's Edge. But a GE upgrade shouldn't affect that, but an RE upgrade might. So if you upgrade to a newer version of RE and you do a sync and you end up with address problems, let us know.
All right, so far so good. Let's see, we had a follow-up question about the reviewing progress. The first question I had for you. So, in response to tracking reviewing progress by round, if a reviewer reviews round 1 of an application in 2015 and reviews round 1 of an application in 2016, is the progress tracking the progress for both these rounds combined or round by round?
Oh, great question. So it's both of those combined at that point. If it's the same application in the same round, then yes, it's going to track them all. That's going to be a cumulative sum, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So that progress will be for both rounds combined.
All right, perfect. And then we had a question about, so you don't have to have Spectrum to use web applications, and I think they're talking about that area within GE.
Oh, yes, correct. So the screen where we showed how to now add your own web application fields to the Manage Online Scholarship application and the Manage Online Proposal application screens, if you're using Proper, you can still take advantage of that, because that's a GE screen. And so regardless of whether your data comes in from Spectrum or from Proper, that GE feature is available to either portal.
Okay, let me make sure I'm capturing all the questions. I had a few questions about, I think, bug fixes. There was one about email batching issues and being able to send emails from a scholarship batch. I think there was some outstanding items there.
Right. So from the batch email screen that I showed you guys was a grant batch, but that functionality is available for scholarship applications. For scholarship batches, for proposal batches, for check runs, for dockets, and for query batches, and also for what's the last batch? I'm drawing a blank here. I think query batches may be the last batch, but it's available for all of those batches.
Okay. And we had I had a positive response about your email answer just then.
Woohoo!
Whoop whoop. So there you go, and you're probably seeing these too. So
right.
We had a question about a new REFE Sync product. We are in the process of releasing a new product. We're calling it Harmonized Sync because we think it will bring harmony to all of you. It's designed to synchronize funds between the Razor's Edge record and the Financial Edge project record, but also, account for attributes between the two and any other first-class fields that you can define. So stay tuned. We'll be providing some more information about that, and I'll be sure to pass that on to everyone as I send some additional information about this meeting and the recording. Another question, is there an easy way to see info submitted through a supplementary page, much like the application?
Let me think about that. The short answer is yes, there is. When you go to the Manage Online Scholarship application screen or the Manage Online Proposal application screen, when you pull up one of those application records, one of the menu items there is to view the application. You don't actually see the HTML, but you can see page by page what's been submitted. And what we've done there before, that screen only showed the preliminary and the standard pages. But now we're going to go ahead and add into that screen the supplemental pages and addendum pages as well.
Okay. I think there was another question about a bug, or sometimes I like to call these undocumented features. Did you fix the issue that wouldn't always allow you to add reviewers to the review committee? Are you aware of a specific issue around that?
Yeah, I am. So, James, on that one, we did find a small problem in there, and we fixed it, but we don't know that it's always going to get rid of that problem every time. One of the things that happens in the Spectrum web portal is that when a new reviewer registers in the portal, if a duplicate constituent record gets created in GE for that particular reviewer, then sometimes the screen where you add reviewers to a committee will not see that new registrant because of the duplicate data that's in there. And there's really no way around that. We did find issues in that screen as we're adding committee members to adding reviewers to committees, and we did fix a couple of small things there. But we'll continue to test that, and of course, James, we'd love to have you test it with your data. And let us know what you find if you guys have a test environment.
All right, and I think we're to our last question, Jeff, and I think I can handle this one. Will you make these slides and screenshots available after the webinar? We'd like to share them with other folks that couldn't join us today. So I will be sending out access to the recording along with the PowerPoint we've put together and along with any other information that you may need. So I just want to let everyone know we're really excited about some of the enhancements, some of the work that has gone into these solutions. Thanks again to Jeff and his team for working really hard to get all this put together. I want to thank all of you for joining us today to take a closer look. And again, feel free to contact me if you have any questions or if you are interested in moving over to Spectrum Web if you're not on that platform yet. And again, I will follow up with all that information that you need in terms of the recording, the PowerPoint, and anything else, especially around the REFE Sync, which we're calling Harmonized Sync. So again, thank you, everyone, and I think now we'll be ready to sign off.